Hey guys, J-Man here in the Phantom Zone, and today we have another episode of the Days of High Adventure, where we talk about old movies, newer movies, anything that kind of brings us back to that time of adventure. So a lot of like Conan-ish stuff, Tarzan, obviously. We're gonna do Zorro. We're gonna talk about the Phantom, some of the pulp heroes and stuff like that. I'd love to go back and do some serials like Spy Smasher and Adventures of Captain Marvel and that kind of thing as well. We got Fire and Ice coming up at some point as well, I think. So a lot of good stuff coming up. But before we get to that, just a couple of quick show updates. So there's not going to be any versus stream tomorrow. Normally Friday we do a versus where we take two movies and put them against each other. That's not happening tomorrow. The next stream is actually going to be Tuesday, which is going to be our weekly wrestling, Women of Wrestling stream. And then 1 week from today, we should have another Days of High Adventure. I'm thinking Fire and Ice, but my buddy just covered Fire and Ice on his channel, so now I'm not sure if I'm going to do Fire and Ice because I don't want to seem like I'm copying his idea, even though I came up with that idea first. But all right, guys. So let's bring in my co-host here first.
Hey, man.
Hey, how's it going?
Excited for this?
Oh, yes. So we have a special guest today. It's not going to just be boring me and boring Sean. Or boring Sean and boringer me. It's gonna. We've got someone who actually knows about what they're talking about for once, instead of you and I just like blathering on about stuff. So I've had him on before. Man, it's been a while. I haven't done a Tarzan thing in a while, and it just like we started this segment. I thought, you know what, man, like we got to do Tarzan, and I thought, what's something that's like a bit more recent, and I think this is the most recent live action Tarzan that we've had, right? Like,
I think so, yeah. They make one now every 10 years. So
yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So I thought, we gotta do a Tarzan, and I've got a lot of Tarzan movies. I should have brought them all out, but they're all there buried in behind some toys. So I was like, well, let's do Legend of Tarzan, because I thought that was a pretty neat movie. I don't know if it got enough recognition. I think it was just kind of like it came and went. It feels like, but we're going to talk about it. So I thought, well, who's the best person to get on here to talk about it? Well, obviously you get the person that literally wrote books on Tarzan. I'll show you the book. Now I've got a link to his Amazon page where you can actually buy these books. So I'll just show them really quick on the graphics because we want to get going. So Tarzan on Film, that book, that's available on Amazon, and the other one is Tarzan, the Stories and Movies, the Art. Okay. So those two books are available on Amazon. The link is pinned in the chat. Okay. So it should be at the top. There's also a poll. We just want to get everyone's idea. Like, did you like Tarzan or Legend of Tarzan or not? And then also, Sean, I did put a link to your channel. I know you're doing a lot more on your stuff, so yours is there. Okay, so that's it. Let's bring in our special guest, Scott Tracy Griffin. How's it going, dude?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for being here. We're super excited because we got someone who knows what they're talking about.
Yes.
So, I was telling everybody, I'm like, I'm going to give you my ideas on this movie. And then Scott's going to be like, no, you're totally wrong. You don't understand what you're talking about. This is what it's really about. I'm like, oh, okay. So real quick, before we get going, you want to just let everyone know kind of, I'll give you the full screen. So just let everybody know kind of who you are and your relationship to Tarzan and all that good stuff. I'll give you the full panel here. 1 second. There you go.
Hi, I'm Scott Tracy Griffin. I'm an author and writer. I began writing professionally about 30 years ago for the movie magazines like Cinefantastique and Film Facts and Film Fatales and the various genre publications. And I have two books out, 2012's Tarzan, the Centennial Celebration, which celebrated the 100-year anniversary of the creation of the character in 1912. And then Titan Books liked it well enough to ask me to do a second volume. In 2016, we came out in Tarzan on Film. And this book was actually timed to be released in conjunction with The Legend of Tarzan to sort of capture that interest that people might have in Tarzan movies. Tarzan on Film covers the 52 authorized Tarzan films and 7 television series.
All right. That's awesome. Okay. So let's say hello to some people in the chat. Could not be reached, man. Thanks so much for coming. Yep. I know you like this one, dude. I appreciate that. Raquel, how's it going? Thank you so
Raquel.
much for coming in. Sean, how come you never shout me out? No, what come on.
It's your
She's
channel,
a-
man.
She's a Sean fan. She's like a big time Sean. You guys aren't boring. Ask my wife. Arkham, dude, thanks man for popping in, man. I appreciate that. All right, Raquel, she's just my wife just published a book. Raquel just published a book. Those books are both on Amazon. So the links to my wife's stuff is in the description of this video and all other videos as well. So check those out. And Raquel's book, I've read her book, so I'm not just saying it's good because we're friends. I genuinely enjoyed her book. I was reading all her stuff as it was coming out, so I enjoy her stuff tremendously. So definitely check that out. Phantom Outsider, thank you so much for coming in, buddy. I appreciate you being here. Okay, so I was thinking let's just go, and I don't know who wants to kind of start. I'll start it off by just talking about this movie in general and sort of like our relationship to it before we start getting into the nitty gritty. And then we are going to use the space system, which I will explain to people. I know you guys in the chat, most of you know what it is, but I will explain it for someone watching later or new people who pop in. So when this movie came out, I was just like, I don't know. I wasn't sure, I liked the Casper Van Dien movie. And I didn't know that people didn't like it, or some people it didn't, I guess it wasn't received as well. I thought it was really cool. And the reason I didn't go to see this in the theater is really stupid, but I think you might understand. He didn't have the loincloth. And that it's the dumbest reason of all time. And I'm literally dinging a little bit. I'm a harsh critic. I'm going to ding this movie a little bit. I want the loincloth. It's just a thing in my head. It doesn't have to be leopard. It could just like Casper Van Dien was still a modern, like it was still like he was still like at Greystoke and he went back. It wasn't an origin, but he still ended up getting the loincloth. Now he did have like more upgraded weaponry, right? I thought was kind of cool, but I want the loincloth. So I didn't see the loincloth and I thought, I bet you this movie is going to shy away from all the cool Tarzan stuff. And I'm not sure where James Bond was at the time of this movie. But I felt that they were almost taking away the cool things of our heroes. It's like, well, James Bond won't be as James Bondy. It'll be different. I was like, and then Tarzan, I was like, no, not Tarzan. I love the guy, man. Skarsgård is like, he's like enormous, right? Like you're like this guy, and Margot Robbie, obviously, she's very attractive. So I was like, okay, but I like Sam Jackson and we got Christoph Waltz. It's like the cast is killer. I was like, I don't know. So I pulled one of these where I let Steve. So Steve is another guy who comes on our channel. So we let Steve be the guinea pig on this one. And he's like, this is an awesome movie, guys. What the hell are you guys doing? And he's like, you guys missed out. I was like, oh shit, I missed it. So I ordered it on Blu-ray. And obviously I watched and I thought it was awesome. But I was like, shit, maybe I should have went to the theater.
Yeah, supported it.
Supported it. But I don't know. He didn't have the loincloth. I'm still dinging it. Listen, I'm gonna be tough.
Yeah.
Movie. So it's not going to be all like, like screamers and like, listen, I want the loincloth. You got a big muscular guy. Let's see the loincloth, anyways. But that's my thing. Sean, why don't you go next and we'll have Scott go after.
I thought it was, when I first saw it, I thought it was pretty cool because they were in this business of making big budget, like state of the art, all the resources of Hollywood to make these like older things, right? Like right. John Carter got that treatment.
Yes.
And that's a whole other story. But I thought it was really cool when I first saw it. Upon rewatch, I'm like, well, I think the problem is I have a lot more Tarzan under my belt now that I've read a lot more of the books. I've read a lot more of the comics. Everything Russ Manning, freaking Joe Kubert, all that stuff. And the books are a hot take, maybe not a hot take. I think the books are a little better. Well, they're a little brisker than the John Carter stuff to me for some reason. I don't know why. It's like you could tell it's serialized a lot of that, but it's just smoother for some reason to me. I have my theories, but whatever. Watching it again, I think, well, we're gonna get into it,
We're
but
gonna get.
I think my issues with it is they're trying too hard to modernize Tarzan, and in so doing, they took away a lot of the things that make him cool. And Tarzan gets his ass kicked a lot in this movie. And it's like,
Okay.
Dude, like, what? It's like, you're Tarzan. I get that, like, realistically, a human can't defeat an ape, but Tarzan should be able to, because I thought the whole point, at least in the first book, the whole point is that he's able to do things the apes can't because he's a man. He has opposable thumbs and all that. So he can, like, create a noose. He can, like, do things. And, that would have been nice to show.
Right.
But at times I feel like they didn't understand Tarzan. And I think stuffing it full of historical figures isn't really the way to modernize the character. I think just showing how cool he is would have been great. Anyways, we're
gonna see. I know. I watched it and I just rewatched it. And I thought, I was like, I don't know. Yeah, Tarzan getting beat up. I was like, why is this guy getting beat up
constantly? Yeah.
But we'll break down. All right, Scott, what's your relationship to now? You saw it in the theater. I know that. What was your relationship to this movie?
Okay, well, my preconceptions are probably a little different than both of you. I've been working professionally in the field for all this time, writing about Edgar Rice Burroughs and his creations. And I was friends with Danton Burroughs, Edgar Rice Burroughs' grandson. And Danton passed away in 2008, but he was really the repository of all the family lore and knowledge. He had this encyclopedic mind of everything that had gone on for 100 years. So this contract was signed back around 2001, 2002. When Danton told me that, basically when Disney came out, they had I don't know if it was an 18-month or a year window on either side of the movie that there couldn't be live action. The animation contract was a separate contract, but they sort of cleared the runway for Disney to do their thing. That's why the Casper movie was sort of put into production and rushed. They had to get it out in 98 before Disney took the reins, right? So Disney happens, live action rights become available, Warner Brothers gets them. So Warner Brothers' first take was the Travis Fimmel TV series, if you may remember that. 8 episodes. They were trying to capitalize on the popularity of Smallville. It initially started as what I call Teen Tarzan in high school.
Yeah.
Tarzan gets captured as a teenage kid.
Right.
And brought back, and the rest was similar. Greystoke Industries is this monolithic, mega corporation that's his uncle running it, and they're kind of shady, shadowy. Maybe shadowy is a better word. You don't really know what's going on. Are they good guys or bad guys? And he gets in high school, and he's got all these powers, and he can beat the bullies up and so forth. And William Cecil Clayton is his cousin, who's the comic relief, and they have a cute girl that they're both sort of smitten with, named Jane.
Right.
And so that was the initial take. That didn't happen. So they retooled it as sort of a cop show. And it's like, well, where does Tarzan fit in here? Okay, he's here. And I really felt like they didn't, like you said, didn't know the character and didn't know what to do with it. It became a procedural cop show about Jane and her cases. And how does this guy she's in love with fit into this? Kind of trying to shoehorn him in it. So that only went 8 episodes. And I think that sort of, Warner Brothers had to sort of reconfigure. Okay, how do we do this? How do we approach this?
Right.
But they had the interest. They kept the option going and going and going. And, from 1918, when Elmo Lincoln was Tarzan, to 1968, a span of 51 years, there were 40 Tarzan movies. So you're talking a Tarzan movie every 16 months or something.
Right.
It was almost yearly, And then there was a drought. It took 14 years to get Greystoke, 14 years to get Casper's movie, which started as Greystoke 2, and 14 years to get this movie. So I feel like Hollywood, you mentioned they kind of don't have a handle on how to approach Tarzan, and they're sensitive about modern day cultural concerns.
Right. Yeah.
There are ways over that hurdle, but it may be that their particular creative approach doesn't see those other alternative ways. So I knew the movie was coming out, and I was following it in the trades, and I remember it went into production in 2014, and right after it shot, Margot Robbie and Skarsgård both went to #1 respectively on the IMDb Star Meter. So this thing was in production right before they both got white hot, and it's just very prescient casting by Jerry Weintraub to lock down these two almost unknown actors on the upswing years before, and get them right at the peak of their popularity. And I did sneak into a screening. I probably I'm not the kind of guy I have too much inside knowledge. They don't want a guy like me when they're screening it for families and children.
Right.
And it wasn't finished, and so I saw the unfinished and was able to kind of cogitate on it. And as a Burroughs fan, when you watch John Carter, for example, or these new big takes, or even the Casper, you kind of try to temper your expectations going
right.
in. Hollywood has gotten it wrong more than they've gotten it right. And so I think with both John Carter and this movie, there were things I was pleasantly surprised at, but I still found myself, I had a little higher expectation than what I got out of it. And just based on Scuttlebutt, like I said, the casting, I knew that they had an A+ list cast. They had David Yates, did the last 4 Harry Potters. I knew they were taking the movie seriously. I knew they were pouring tens of millions of dollars into it. So I saw the screening and I kind of thought about it. And I think, like John Carter, it's a movie that grew on me with successive viewings. But there are also a few little things I would have done different, or I wish they had done different, that kind of stuck with me. And I saw it 5 or 6 times in the theaters, and then a couple of times on DVD, and I rewatched it Christmas Eve. And it's like every time I see this movie in my head, I play out, the scene plays out, and I'm kind of like, oh no. It's like I forget. It's like there's almost a glitch in the matrix where it seems like it doesn't unspool like you think it should. So we'll get into that as you guys discuss, your ideas, what I thought was kind of a little bump, but overall I liked it. I'm happy anytime someone takes a Burroughs property and takes an A+ list approach, gets the best talent. And, they did that. And I think Tarzan and Edgar Rice Burroughs in general have sort of some hurdles. It's a small family held company. They're not part of Disney or Marvel or Star Wars or, DC. These big monolithic brands, corporate owned brands, they have a lot more clout and muscle. Yerba is a small brand and they're fighting to compete in the marketplace, and they find a place, and I'm happy for that. And so, overall, I'm happy that the movie came out. In general, I liked it. Like I said, I have a few quibbles, and that's the inner critic. When you grow up on the books, you can never fully stifle that inner critic. And I think I do manage to do a better job than a lot of fans, because there's some fans who, one thing, like, well, he's blonde, and they write the movie off. And you mentioned that a little bit earlier, and I'm sure you'll get into that. They just didn't, or John Carter, Deja Thoris wasn't nude. She's supposed to be nude.
Right. Which was like really realistically never going to happen.
What A+ list actress are you going to cast to be running around stark naked in an NC-17 John Carter movie? And who's going to see it?
Right. Nobody's going to watch it. And then how bad's the budget going to be? If you make a rated X movie, you can, but there's nobody going to watch it. So the budget's going to be nothing, and then how's it going to be realized? Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's my general impressions. Like I said, I came into it knowing probably more about it than the average person who just walked into a theater. And I have my ear to the ground in Burroughs fandom, the Burroughs Bibliophiles fan group. We actually had Edgar Rice Burroughs Incorporated, the company, hosted the annual fan gathering, which is called the Dum Dum, after the novels. The apes gather around this earthen drum and they beat it and they celebrate and dance around and have rituals. And so that's the annual Burroughs convention. They had that convention out here, and the whole group went over and watched a screening of the movie on the live screen. And it's always interesting to watch a movie with, a few hundred Burroughs fans. I remember with John Carter, the response was kind of muted,
right?
Because they're like me. There's things they like, there's things they love, and there's things they're like, well, why couldn't they have done it this way?
Right.
So
we did John Carter. Was that the first episode we did on this one, Sean? Was John Carter? I can't remember.
I don't know if it was
like the first or second, but my first ever YouTube video is a review of John Carter, and I just read the 3. I think they just re-released. They always release the book, so I just bought the first 3. I think I definitely read the first one before the movie. I think I read the second and third. My wife read the 3 that I had because I only owned 3 of them. So we read them. I saw the movie. I was like, yeah, this is so cool. I'm like, but it's like a few things were like, oh man, I don't know. But after I watched it a bunch more times, and Sean and I discussed it, we're like, yeah, I like this movie. It's just like what you're saying. It's hard to remove that, but you kind of have to sometimes if you're going to get any enjoyment out of a movie.
Right.
Yeah.
right? So
And I think too, we want these properties to revive and be big, in culture again, right? So it's the last big effort to do that, and then when it fails, I feel disappointed, right?
and you know what
Um,
it is? It's the public's eye that like I like I'll just bring up Transformers really quickly because I don't want to harp on this. Those
yeah,
Movies are awful, right? So
right,
so they're so awful, but then everyone's like, wow, and I'm like, no, this is not what
yeah,
Transformers is. And I don't like the fact that the general public now is walking around
thinks that that's
thinks that this is what
Transformers. I know,
Transformer is, and then when they see that, like Sean and I like Transformers, like, oh, these guys must be idiots or like something stupid because this is a stupid concept.
yeah,
And so that's my thing. So I don't know. I don't think Legend of Tarzan it's not like an embarrassment.
no,
So you were like, ooh, this is not Tarzan. Stop it. Like this, Transformers was the first thing popped into my mind. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. But like, well, I can now, but I'm not going to mention that. Transformers. You're like, no. So that's sort of
well,
where I'm
and
at.
also public consciousness, because as you were saying, Scott, like like Margot Robbie's Star Wars on the Upswing.
Yeah.
I think Suicide Squad came out before this, right? So
Check.
check,
I'll
because
check.
that's fresher, I think, in the public mind than this movie, and it came out before this movie, I think.
Suicide Squad. Oh, well, it's 2016, but I think Tarzan's 2016.
Yeah, I think it
So
was August. I think it was fall, but it was
Yeah,
it was more in the news more. Certainly
yeah,
that role garnered Margot Robbie more acclaim and attention.
yeah,
yeah.
Even in the build up to the movie, it did. Her role that role for Margot definitely overshadowed her role as Jane.
as Jane.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, because
at around the same time.
you're basically Jane versus Harley Quinn, who's like Harley Quinn is super popular in comics.
Right,
Uh,
right, and that was another character that was just peaking right as Margot steps into the role. Interest,
Right.
you see all the girls, and women at Comic-Con dressed as,
Okay.
and I didn't. That's how I became acquainted with the character. Was you see a few and okay, who's that, and then every girl was wearing that costume.
right.
But to get back to your statement, about Transformers, Burroughs fans face the same thing. Johnny Weissmuller, here was this
Yes.
iconic guy who, that's the public perception of Tarzan in film.
Yeah.
Right.
And it had glimpses and glimmers of Burroughs Tarzan, but it was a vastly divergent continuity.
Right.
And that's what the movies have struggled about. And Greystoke, Greystoke was the first one. They sort of reset it in the 60s with the Gordon Scott and Mike Henry. And okay, Tarzan speaks full English and he's a little more serious now. But that was, Greystoke really had to kind of reboot the character. And Robert Towne, who wrote that movie, that was his dream. He went right by the book and just did his screenplay right by the book. And of course, the movie was taken from him, and Hugh Hudson and his writer Michael Austen, they did the English sequence, and it diverged more from Burroughs than probably the Weissmuller movies. But that's what the Burroughs fans face is there's this public perception, because at least people of our age, we grew up in Tarzan was on the Saturday matinee on TV. And I don't know if I don't think they still show it as much.
Not in Canada, at least. We're in Canada.
Yeah, Weissmuller was this huge guy, and in the public's perception, he was Tarzan. He embodied Tarzan, and so that's sort of the shadow of the new movies. Is they have to go against those perceptions with Tarzan as Lord Greystoke in England, and I think they lean into that. Certainly, they did with this movie.
Right. Yeah, it's like Greystoke is the Batman '89. Where it's like, let's try to make this serious. Though I love the Adam West show and I will fight anyone. I love Adam West. I don't care. But like, yeah, it's a different thing. And I remember when I saw those Tarzan movies, I enjoyed them as a kid, obviously. And I read the first Tarzan book and I thought, and it is one of those like, whoa, what is this? This is like super serious. This is like not at all what those movies are.
Yeah.
It's weird. And I remember my wife because she reads tons of books and I'm like, we got to read Tarzan. She's like, I don't know. I'm like, I said, yeah, but what is your impression? And my wife's Indian, and her impression is only those movies. Like, that's it. Like, there's no Greystoke. Like, I didn't see any of that. But like, so she's like, it's Tarzan's kind of silly, right? I was like, well, no, not really. I mean, like, you got to read this. And she read it. And she's like, holy crap. Like, this is so good. Like, she was more pumped up for it than I was. She was like, oh, this is so damn good. I'm like, yeah. Because I think her perception was like so low. I still knew because like I'm a nerd, and so I'm aware of things more. I'm like, yeah, I know that these movies weren't really Tarzan. They made him stupid or whatever. But I never had read the book. I think I didn't read the book till like university.
Oh yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
getting it because Sean and I went to the same university. I remember getting it because I had a lot of spare periods. I'm like, oh, I should get Tarzan. I got that book, and I got a couple of other ones.
Yeah.
In no order. I think I read book. Yeah.
My first Tarzan book was Tarzan Meets the Ant-Man.
I was just gonna say because
only because I had a hardcover of it from when I was like 10. And it's cool, man.
No, yeah, I haven't read them all, but I read like my first one was like book 10 or something. Like I remember like it was two. Remember they brought them back out and it was 2 in 1 and they packaged them in like one. And so that's what I'd had in university.
Yeah, I think it was that. It was a Jewel of Opar. That's the name of that, right? And then I read the first one and the second one, and I was like, "This is awesome!" It's like, and I think I read a lot of the adaptations in the DC comics, and the Marvel comics. Like I have the full run of the Marvel comics, so yeah, the Roy Thomas ones,
yeah. This is probably sort of what led me down my career path. Had I had that Weissmuller perception, I might never have discovered the books, or it would have been a different experience. I knew who Tarzan was as a really small children. I'd seen snippets of movies and the Ron Ely series on TV. But when I walked in, started asking my parents because I just knew who this character was. I thought it was kind of cool. He, hangs around with elephants and lions and gorillas. And if they had any Tarzan books, and my parents had a pretty good library, no Tarzan. So I walk into our local small town bookstore, and there they are, all the Black Valentines, right? And I read every one. I must have stood there for an hour. And I read everyone, and I started with Tarzan of the Apes because I wanted to see how he began the journey. And even though that Ant-Man cover was fascinating with the tiny little guys, how does this work? And the Lion Man cover by Neil Adams and the Leopard Man, those were just fascinating. So I was 9 years old. So I was reading Burroughs at 9, and that was my Tarzan, was Edgar Rice Burroughs, drawn by Neil Adams. And within a few months, I was picking up the DC comics. And so I, unusual probably for a kid of that generation, came to Tarzan more from the books, and the movies and TV and everything were secondary.
Right.
Yeah, and I was a TV kid. Like I like reading a novel that was like not happening. And like comic books, yes, sort of. And then so it was all movies. I'd watch movies all the time. I just want to say, hey, Comic Vet, how's it going, dude?
Hey, Comics Vet.
Hey, dude. Hey, Chris. Chris has got a great channel. The link to his channel is in the description of this video and all my videos going forward because I like Chris. He's a good guy. But yeah, I mean, so Tarzan. I mean, would you say? I think Greystoke. I had a poster of Greystoke in my room. And it scared me with the ape because he's got the apes around him. So my grandfather, I would have nightmares. So my grandfather had to trim out Lambert and just have. So it's just, but it looked really stupid because he's like this, right? And it's like, well, where's the? It's just like he's just cut up. But I was like, I don't care, it's Tarzan. And then when the Casper Van Dien movie came out, I liked the poster. I liked that movie, and we can start getting into a little bit of the discussion of this movie. I liked that. They had the Greystoke stuff because I like Greystoke the movie. I was like, wow, this is awesome. Like to me, that was my Tarzan movie, and that was the first one I purchased on VHS.
Right.
And I think I had a widescreen VHS, but I'm not sure. I think I was able to find a widescreen VHS, but then I had the VHS, and then I had the I got the DVD obviously, and whatever, you keep upgrading them. But I was like, wow, this is so cool. And then the Casper Van Dien came out. I was like, well, this could just continue on because he's at Greystoke and then he goes back. I thought, oh, this is so cool. So that's how I really got into it. And then that's why this movie, at least it's serious. I thought, at least these are serious movies. It is like Batman with Adam West, even though I love the Adam West thing. And I went back and watched the Johnny movies. There's a bunch of 4-packs. You saw the ones from Warner's. They would do 4. I think I got a couple of those. Mm-hmm. So Lambert was 3. Yeah, he's awesome. So yeah, it's interesting to see like Tarzan, like what they do with this character. And I think Conan also suffered a bit because I love Schwarzenegger. I love the Schwarzenegger movie, but it's not Robert E. Howard's Conan really, but I love the movie. It's my favorite movie. I don't know if that's my favorite movie of all time. And it's like, and it's not Conan really. Just Joe, thanks so much for popping in.
Well, it's like Schumacher Batman. It's like
Schumacher Batman.
All us fanboys suffered through those movies, but
I've seen that movie
then they
like
made the
50
series
times.
Batman, so yeah.
I was gonna put my Poison Ivy poster here, but I put Mortal Kombat here instead. All right, so we're gonna break down the movie. So everybody, we're gonna break it down using my SPACE system. So I'm just gonna explain that to some people who might not know. SPACE stands for story, pacing, artistry, characters, and enjoyment. This is what I use to grade movies and comic books and TV shows. The system is used to grade movies against themselves, which sounds weird, but also movies kind of in their genre or if they're sequels and whatever. So we're going to be talking about Legend of Tarzan, and we're not going to be comparing Legend of Tarzan to, Ben-Hur or Lawrence of Arabia or something like that. But we are going to talk about it in terms of what a Tarzan movie should give us, what we expect out of a Tarzan movie, how well did they deliver on what we expect to get out of this movie. So each category gets a score, okay, between 0 and 2. So there's not a lot of play, but you could do 0.5s, like you could do 1.5, or you could do 0.5 if you thought it was a little better than 0. At the end, we give a score out of 10. So you add all those categories up, you get something out of 10, and then we'll see where we're at. It's very interesting to do this because sometimes if I just ask you, like if I ask people, what do you think this movie is? And they're like, oh, I'd give it a 9. And then when we break it down, they end up being at a 7.5. They're like, oh, I'm like, right. Because like, it is tough. A lot of people, me included, and all of us, we base movies on our enjoyment, really, which is like, I love this movie. I'm buying it. I'm going to watch it. But when we're discussing it, I like to break it down because then little things pop up where it's like, yeah, I don't know if I like that aspect of this movie. It gives us a way to discuss it in a better way than just saying, I thought it was great and it's awesome, because that's why I see everyone's like, it's 10 out of 10. I'm like, is it really 10 out of 10? Or are you just, So story is story. Everybody knows what that means. Pacing, that's just the pacing of the movie. Was it too slow, too fast? Fast could be a negative. Artistry is the look. Effects if applicable. So yes, there is effects in this movie. Like costuming, that kind of a thing. Music, it's like the background score, all that kind of a stuff. Characters, obviously, do you like the characters? Do you like the good guys? Do you want Tarzan to win? Do you hate the bad guys? Are they evil? Do you want to see them get defeated? And then in the enjoyment factor is just you get a if that's just 0 or 0, 1 or 2 or whatever 0.5, that just gives the movie a little bit extra. So you might say, I love this movie. I'm giving it a 2 out of 2 for enjoyment factor because I just loved it. And I don't care what anyone says. And I know I just said the story was garbage, but I still thought it was awesome anyway. The way I look at enjoyment is, did I like the movie? Would I watch it again? Would I recommend it to my buddy? Would I buy the movie on Blu-ray? Right. So we already know what my answer is going to be for Legend of Tarzan since I already have all those things. But anyways, okay. So let's get going. So Scott, I'll let you go last just so you kind of get the gist of it. So Sean, why don't you start with what do you think? First, we'll do our scores just for story. Then we'll talk about talk about why we got to that score. So what would you give the story for Legend of Tarzan?
I gave it a 1 out of 2.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, we'll get to it. Okay. I also gave it a 1. And just to let everybody know, if a movie gets 5 out of 10, that's a pass. That means it was good. 6 means it's really 5 or 6 means it's a good movie. You should watch it. 7 or 8's like, yeah, you got to see this movie. 9, 10's like, oh yeah, I got to buy this movie. I'm probably going to get the soundtrack, like all that, like you get really pumped for it. So that's where we're at. So for me, it's a 1. We'll get to why. So Scott, so I know this is new for you. So what do you think the story's at? 0 is bad. 2 is awesome. You could do 0.5s if you want.
Maybe I'm being generous, but I thought I would give it a 1.5.
Yep. Okay. All right. So, Sean, why were you at a 1? Like what prevented that extra bit? Because I was kind of between 1 and 1.5. We can change our scores, right? Because we're talking about it. I'm writing it on a boogie board. I'm not writing it on a stone tablet. Yeah. So, Sean, where are you at for 1?
I'm at a 1 because I don't feel like this is really a Tarzan story to me. It's and they do a sort of Joe Chill thing with Damon Hunsu where it's like the tribesman he kills in the first book is really like Damon Hunsu's like son or whatever. But this is really, so they stuffed it full of these historical figures. So this is really George Washington Williams or William Washington.
Washington. Sam Jackson.
It's his story in real life. He went to the Congo. He realized that Napoleon was enslaving people. He wrote a stern letter, and it's now famous. In this movie, he hitches a ride with Tarzan to go there and do all this, but it's really his revelation, and it's like sure, I guess they work in Opar. Opar is not really Opar in this thing. They have the leopard men. I think there was a version of leopard men in the books. You could correct me if I'm wrong, Scott. But they're a real life tribe that they squeezed into this thing. So that's all cool. I just think that doing all this, sure, it grounds it, but like the wonder and fun and fast paced imagination of the Tarzan thing is gone here. To me, it's like Tarzan can't really do much other than swing. You want to see him swing, but like there's not a lot of opportunity for him to do cool, resourceful Tarzan things. The Beastmen are not there. There's no Queen Law. It's like all the fun, weird stuff of pulp imagination and adventure is sort of stripped away from this for me. And like Leon Rom is a real guy. But he's this cartoonish villain here, and he gets mauled by crocodiles. Like, I don't know if that's how he really died in real life.
Yeah, we'll get to him on characters.
I just feel like it's unnecessarily grounded. I know that's what audiences want nowadays, and that's probably the calculation they made. But it's just the fun and wonder of the character is sort of not there for me. So that's why I gave it a 1.
Yeah. So a 1, just to that still means it's good. 0 is bad. It's cool. 1 is good. 2 is amazing.
It's cool for what they're trying to do. Right. It's just not. Maybe I'm reviewing it for what it's not, but like that's too bad.
Yeah, I'm with you on the 1 for the same reasons. Also, just the fact that like they had this whole thing with like I want Tarzan, and then I'll give you the diamonds and all that, and that just kind of just didn't go anywhere. He's like, oh, we're friends now. I'm like, okay, I wanted a big. They gave you a little bit of a battle, but I was thinking, oh, this is going to be like epic right now, And forget, I don't know the intricacies of the books. Like, I don't know, it was this guy from this book or not, so I don't really know. I'm just looking at it as just Tarzan movie. One positive is that they didn't. I do like splicing the origin like within, as opposed to having here's half an hour of origin, then like, which I think is a bit overused. Like, I like that they just kind of flashbacked it when you needed to know something, they showed it. Which is a bit of a pacing, so I might be getting into pacing right now. But yeah, so that's the only reason I give it. I still like the story. I just I wasn't as, I was trying to think like, why am I excited for Tarzan to go do this stuff? And you sort of said that, Sean. It's like, that's where I wasn't there. Like, I want Tarzan to be like, yeah, I'm Tarzan. I know what's going on. I'm doing this. Here's what's happening. And then Sam Jackson's there, just like, okay, but I don't care about you. Like, he's
trying to rescue Jane for a lot of it. But the thing is, I don't feel any urgency from either character about that. It's like, Margot Robbie seems like at peace and fun with everything.
She can take care of herself.
She's just sitting around. It's like, what? Like, dude, is there danger? And then she encounters those apes.
Yeah.
But like, I don't feel like they're gonna do anything to her because they probably recognize her or something.
She's good. So yeah, I still like the story. I think it was good. I was close to giving it 1.5, and what brought me to 1.5 was the origin thing, and that you are following Tarzan still, and I do like that Jane is trying to also escape versus like, well, I'm just gonna wait for Tarzan to show up. I also like, which we'll get into characters as well, but a little bit where they're like, the mystique of Tarzan is still there. Like, oh, it's like, oh yeah, wait till Tarzan shows up. He's going to destroy everybody. You're like, okay. So I went to 1.5 and I went back to 1 and I've scratched this. My notes here are crazy. It's like I've been scratching this. I don't know what to do. So I went back to 1 because I always figure if I'm not sure, let me go to 1 and then I'll see what happens on stream and then see if I flip back. I'm definitely not at a 2 for the issues that you said, Sean. Scott, so you're at a 1.5, so you're on the more positive, a little bit more. So what were the positives and negatives for you for the story?
Well, I think the plotting. I just thought it, and maybe this comes more under pacing. I thought they set it up, and again, I'm basing this not on Tarzan movies I've seen, the Tarzan movie I want. I'm basing it on other movies in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And movies just hit certain beats. There's that book that came out called Save the Cat. And I don't know if these screenwriters did it, but it's just Hollywood has gotten very formulaic of you have to have certain beats.
Right.
And so I thought that this movie, they did that very well and sort of managing and shaping your expectation as a viewer. Okay, this happens. Okay, this is like you said, Tarzan, they built up that sort of mystique and fear. I agree with some of Sean's considerations. It's just I would put those more under the category of character.
Okay.
That I think that this was almost an ensemble movie. It's like, okay, we've got to give Samuel L. Jackson his time. Like we've got to give Christopher Waltz his time. Margot Robbie, like you said, she's got to be proactive. She's got to be trying to escape. And it wasn't, it wasn't Tarzan's movie.
Right.
It was a jungle movie. But, that's kind of explained by the fact that he's been in civilization. And even Burroughs has Tarzan in the books get jumped by some guys. He's been hanging out in Paris,
right?
Smoking, drinking absinthe. He's new to civilization, and he's exploring everything. He says, well, his senses were dulled,
right,
from being in this environment, and so he's been in England for 8 years, and that's what. And again, I come into this movie having read all the trademarks and Yates interviews and everything, and I know, okay, they're going to show. Like they did with Casper, and of course they thought it had never been done. It's been done a few times. Tarzan's reversion to the savage. This is not Tarzan's reaching for and grasping civilization. This is reversion to the savage.
Yeah.
So they set him up as this very civilized guy. He's still got the gnarly hands, and he still carries the jungle in him, but he's trying hard to be Lord Greystoke, and he doesn't want And I thought and again, this gets more into story, that the idea that he's scared of Mbanga because he killed Mbanga's son.
Yeah.
No, that's that to me, I guess a little guilt, but that's not what Tarzan would do. The Tarzan I know, the Tarzan obviously he wouldn't be scared to go back in the jungle because I killed a guy, killed somebody's son. That regret and that remorse. But I think that's again to make him sort of the flawed hero.
Yeah.
And Burroughs Tarzan was, John Carter. None of those guys, their only flaw was they were too headstrong. They rushed into danger.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't second guess themselves. They weren't, wishy-washy or flip-floppy, or maybe I should, and that was a big criticism of the John Carter movie was the flawed hero approach.
Yeah.
So, I agree with some of your considerations. So for me, in giving it a 1.5, it's more, it sort of hit the beats. It sort of managed the expectations of the modern movie-going audience. I would have liked to have seen a little more color and oomph, more Tarzan being kick-ass.
Right.
But compared to what the movie could have been, compared to the other movies in the marketplace, I thought it was pretty solid.
Yeah. All right. Good. Okay. So pacing. I guess I'll start with pacing. I think I'm at a 1.5 for pacing because I actually wasn't really bored at any point in time. I do think it could have been trimmed a little bit just to get it going a little bit quicker. But I really wasn't bored. So that's the number one thing. And I don't think it should have been any longer. I think it should have been a little bit shorter, and maybe a little bit shorter, or if they were going to keep it the same length, focus more on what Tarzan's doing. But as you guys pointed out, we know it's an ensemble. We have to see what all these characters are doing. Maybe we'll get to characters. Maybe there's too many characters. I'm going to ding characters a little bit when we get to it. But pacing is still, if I'm looking at it just as a movie and not I want to see Tarzan beat up people for 2 hours, if I'm just looking at it as a movie, I still think it was paced pretty good. Like a few scenes, I think any movie you could take out like maybe 10 minutes here and there, pretty much from any movie. I don't want to throw Batman under the bus, which was 3 hours and nothing happened for like 90 minutes of it, which I thought was like that pacing on that would be like 0 for me, I think. But pacing on this is 1.5. I thought it was good. I wasn't bored. I was excited.
You have to shove Batman under the bus.
I have to throw him under the bus. I know Batman's and Arkham's going to be upset with me and he's going to unsubscribe.
The Batman, yeah.
The Batman. I still watched it like 4 times, man. Give me a break. I thought the pacing was good on this one. So I'm giving it a 1.5. I wasn't bored. I was excited to see what's going on. I kind of like the stuff with Jane. you would going back anything with Jane and Tarzan. To me, they're what Tarzan is. So going back to see what they're doing is cool. So not a 2 because I still think it could have been a bit shorter, or they could have used their time better to showcase other things, which also I feel is part of pacing. It doesn't necessarily mean it was too long or too short, but I'm giving it 1.5. So Sean, I'll go you next.
I gave it a 1. I think that it could have been sped up a bit, get to the point a little bit better. But it's not like Krull slow, right? Like
right. Man, come on.
We trashed Krull a few weeks ago.
No, we still love Krull. Stop it. We're losing subscribers. It's like literally it's going down as you talk. Stop it. Stop talking.
Yeah, no, I just feel like it's there are times when they dwell on the surroundings, and I understand what they're trying to do, but the point of the movie isn't that. It's like they're with that tribe and they're like dancing and stuff, and they're like, oh, they're singing about Tarzan because he used to kill all these guys, and now he doesn't. Like that kind of thing. He used to be a god in the trees, and that's cool. I think what they're trying to do is really reintroduce the character to an audience that doesn't really know the character beyond Disney and like that Euro dance song, that Tarzan song. Yeah, it's like, do you remember that? I don't know.
No, what are you talking about? I'm like, what is this guy?
No, it's by a band called Toy Box.
Okay,
you can look it up later. Man.
I will.
I remember it because I was all into that stuff. But and if you want to know what the public thinks about Tarzan, that song is it. It's like it's me, Tarzan, you, Jane, and all that stuff.
Oh dear God, this is awful. I'm not. I was gonna share the screen, but I'm not.
No,
I'm not doing it. That's awful.
Yeah, I just feel like I feel it is slow, but it's slower than it really should be for an action adventure thing.
Yeah.
But it doesn't cripple the movie for me, so I'm in the middle with it, and I'm at a 1 out of 2.
Okay, all right. Scott, what are your thoughts on the pacing?
I'd give it a 1.5 for pretty much the same reasons you did. It kept my interest. It moved. I thought it was a little slow getting into the action, but like I said, I was interested in saying, okay, where's this going? And I could see they were tying all these different threads together. And, don't have a lot of, other than being a little more faster paced and get the action a little better, don't really have any strong criticisms of the pacing.
Yeah.
One thing I might, to jump back into character, you mentioned the flashbacks. What's interesting about those flashbacks is they weren't in the original cut.
Oh, interesting.
And they screened it for test audiences. They were in the version I saw, but before I came along, they screened it, and the young people said, we want to see the origin. We want to see how he happened. So they did reshoots, and they hired 2 young actors, and they digitally morphed, Skarsgård and Robbie's youngened face, if that's a word, youngened faces under these actors, and for the reshoots. So, that was one thing going in is they realized with their audience that you've got people out there that they want to see the love story and they want to see how it happened.
Yeah.
And I feel like they took this approach of him like way later on from that origin story because they felt like audiences, it's the Superman syndrome. Like you don't want to see the origin all over again.
Right.
But they might have misunderstood that there's a whole generation that kind of doesn't know this.
Right.
Yeah,
and I mean the Tarzan movie is not the origin of Tarzan. I mean the Disney movie, sorry. Yeah.
Sorry? The Disney cartoon? Movie, yeah. Oh, I like that cartoon a lot, actually.
Yeah, but I feel like that's like the more known thing, but it's not exactly the book, right? So
no.
Yeah.
But yeah, we should do a Disney Tarzan thing. That's like probably my favorite Disney movie.
Yeah,
I like Snow White, and those are like probably my 2 favorites. Those are probably my 2 favorites. Like the first ever one. Yeah, that's it. After that, it's all trash. It's like, I don't know. Okay, so anything else on pacing, or are we good to move on?
I'm good.
Good. Okay. All right. So let's go backwards. Let's go, Scott. We'll start with you for the artistry. So this would be the look, the music, the I don't know, costumes, whatever, like anything that's visual or audio, I guess.
I give that a 1.52 for the reason that I thought the costuming was good.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of, I guess, it caught me a little by surprise, pleasantly surprised at the way they shot the jungle. It was moody. It was atmospheric. It was dark. It was dank. They had different, they had at times they had sunlight rays breaking through. Then they had the heavy downpour. They really sort of they made the jungle a character in this movie. Yeah. It wasn't just the same jungle you see
right
in the other Tarzan films. The jungle was alive, and you felt that. And the elephants coming through, that sequence, it didn't really advance the plot, but it showed you, how, the allure that the jungle held for Tarzan. Right. That here was these elephants, and he communed with them. And that's something I always want to do. When I go to Africa, I'm supposed to go later this year. I want to go to the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust where they take in the orphan baby elephants, and they hand rear them. And, I want to go there, and I want to just let the elephants just touch the elephants and let the elephants experience me and me experience them. And so I really got that from that scene, that here were these huge, majestic, intelligent creatures, and they didn't have a role to play. Maybe it was too hard to animate them attacking the village or something. Right. But it was a nice scene, a nice moment to show that Tarzan does have this relationship with Tantor, as he's called in the books. Yeah. So yeah, it sort of exceeded my expectations in a way, with the mood and the atmosphere, and the costuming was good. They had different parts. They had the veld. And I was kind of wondering, okay, they're in, the Congo. Where is this hill covered with grass and wildebeest and lions? But okay, they want to show us wildebeest and lions, and yeah, I'm good with that. And shows that Tarzan is, communing with the lioness also, and he raised these cubs. And so, yeah, I just think it sort of hit all the different points. I think, and this goes back to one of your or comments you will be coming up. I think audiences go into a Tarzan movie with expectations that certain points are going to be hit, beats are going to be hit. And there are certain iconic things about Tarzan. The knife, the yell, which owes more to the movies than the thing, the loincloth, the relationship with the apes. So there are just certain beats, the tree house, which wasn't in the books, but that's the thing. In the jungle, there's just an expectation that there's going to be this high, scary treehouse swaying in the wind, and there's a little rope ladder, and the animals are coming up and down the rope ladder. So I thought that they, they hit all the beats, and they gave it sort of a new twist. That the treehouse is what you would sort of expect it to be, and so yeah, I thought the artistry, I wouldn't give it a 10 out of 10, but a 1.5 certainly.
Yep. I also gave 1.5 for everything you said. I almost gave it a 2. The only reason I didn't give it a 2, I'll keep this short and we can get to Sean, because I agree with pretty much everything that you said, so I don't need to repeat it all. But the reason I didn't give it a 2, I gave it a 2 and I scratched it out. I was like, I don't know. I went back to 1.5. The reason I didn't give it a 2, I would almost say 1.75, but I'm not doing points because I'm not doing math. That's just getting too much. 1.5. I was so close to 2. The reason I didn't is that sometimes it's got that like darken, and Sean knows what I'm talking about, that gray. It's like the whole movie almost is like tint. That tint. This is my Wonder Woman argue. I know it's World War I or whatever, but like, again, this is my thing. It's like all these movies now have this like this, I don't know, if tint or whatever, or filter or whatever they're putting on them, and they always have that. And I'm like, oh, but Tarzan running around on those
the tree branches,
yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
Like the apes look pretty damn good. Like we're getting close, right? We're not there yet, but we're pretty close to where it's going to be like, wow, this is like, like it's like, you're really there kind of a thing, right? And I know that was a studio, or I think they built that set, that entire section. You're like, wow, this looks really cool. So, I was close to a 2. I gave it a 1.5 for the tint, and I'm going to continue dinging movies for this tint, because it's just like, I don't know what, it's like every movie. It's like, I don't know if it's a Christopher Nolan tint, or is it somebody's to blame. I'm going to blame Christopher Nolan for now until I figure out someone else to blame. But I'm at a 1.5. Sean, what are you at?
Yeah, Solo was the worst for that. It's like you can't see any of that movie.
Oh, Han Solo? I thought you meant Solo with Mario Van Peebles, which I love.
No, not the Mario Van Peebles Solo. No one knows about that movie except for you and me, right? But
oh man.
No,
the Han Solo. Oh yeah, why is that? Like I couldn't see
the
anything wrong
trailers
with
were fine, and then when you watch the
Yeah.
movie, they have this tint over. It's like, why'd you put the filter
Yeah.
over this thing?
Yeah, there's 1 hour of that Han Solo movie which I could not see. I have it on. I still bought it because I buy everything even if I
Yeah.
don't like it. But I watched it again. I'm like, I could see it a bit better if I turn up the brightness a bit. But like you can't. Yeah. But no, this movie I could see clearly. So I don't want
Yeah.
people to think that this is like Solo where you couldn't see anything.
No, but when
I
you
could
think
see
back to it,
everything
you think of
clearly.
that color scheme of the
Yeah, it's just right. So
I,
Sean, what?
I give this a 1.5 as well.
Yep,
I
okay.
think everything looks wonderful. All of the soundstage stuff looks pretty lived in and like a jungle. Like obviously when they're running on those big branches or those
Yeah.
winding trees, it's like they're running on some green screen thing or something, right? But it looks pretty good, and like Sam Jackson's sort of like, oh, you know, the animals look great. I feel like you can look this up if you want, but I think Jungle Book came out before this movie. The Disney
It
Jungle
might,
Book.
yeah, it might. That movie looked pretty good
And
too,
that
right?
was fairly groundbreaking, and all that cool stuff made it into this movie. The animals look pretty good. They don't look CGI and crap, and I don't know how many of them were practical versus like obviously the elephants weren't. So yeah, no, I think
Skarsgård was a CGI effect. There's no human
Yeah.
that looks that's that. He was
I
fake.
think every so often, you saw a little bit of like the CGI characters looked like a different quality than the rest of it. That happens time to time, especially with the elephants. So that's my 0.5, but overall, 1.5 for me for art.
All right. Okay. Characters. I mean, I think okay. I'll start with characters because I gave it a 1. I'm giving it a 1 for characters. And the thing is that I thought Tarzan was awesome. I like Sam Jackson mostly because it's Sam Jackson, but I
Yeah.
do like Sam Jackson. He was a character, I guess, but you know, he's basically just being he wasn't as Sam Jackson as he was in other Sam Jackson roles. So
When he first appears, he's totally Sam Jackson.
he is totally Sam Jackson, but then he
Voice and
becomes a
everything,
character
right?
after.
Yeah.
I like Jane. I like Jane. I like the good guys.
Yeah.
The bad guys, Christoph Waltz. It's like, buddy,
He
you are
plays
not
Christoph
evil.
Waltz. Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah.
But he's not evil enough. Like, look, I gotta want Tarzan to destroy these people. Like, I want to see Tarzan and I'm just like, and he's got the rosary weapon. I'm like, this weapon is lame. I don't know. Like, I felt that Margot Robbie probably could have beat him up and got out. What's the guy's name? Bongo, the chieftain guy.
The chieftain, yeah.
Yeah, he was awesome. But then nothing happened. And it's like
he got shot by Christoph Waltz, and you're saying he did nothing. He
didn't do anything. Well, he should have done. I don't know. I wanted to do more. I don't know. I was starting to build this matchup. Like, okay, he's got to take out Christoph Waltz. He's got to take out this guy. So he's got a lot of obstacles. I'm like, he just kind of like, they kind of said, oh, we're cool now. I'm like, all right, I guess we're cool now. And then it's like, oh, I've got like that rope weapon, that rosary weapon, like traps Tarzan, and it's like,
that's weird.
That's awful. Like,
that's a weird obstacle to put in Tarzan's
that's a weird, yeah. And then his neck just breaks, which is funny. I like that. But they weren't evil enough. It's like, and I know obviously slavery is bad, and yes, they're collecting slaves, so that's obviously an evil. But we didn't see it in a evil way. You know what I'm saying? I understand they're trying to shy away from showing it.
They can't do that though, right? They can't show.
They can't show it because but on the other hand, to me, I'm just like, Christoph Waltz is bad because they're saying he's bad and he's collecting slaves, which I know is bad. But I wanted him to do more evil acts, or at least a couple of things where I could really be like, you know what, I got to see this guy get killed. So this is a case where the bad guy wasn't for me evil enough that I wanted him to see. Like, I should have been like when the alligators come, like, yeah, you know, and I'm just like, okay, well, he's a bad guy. Yeah, he got killed.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at with like Tarzan is awesome. I think Skarsgård is good. I like Margot Robbie. I like Sam Jackson. The villains, I was just like, that's where I'm at with characters. So I'll Sean, do you want to go next?
Sure. I gave it a 1.
Yep.
I like all the characters more or less for what they're doing. I dinged it for a lot of, like, first of all, I'm going to say it, like, I think Margot Robbie and Skarsgård have no chemistry in this movie. And they're Tarzan and Jane. It's like they're supposed to be the quintessential couple, but it's like, I don't know. There doesn't seem to be a lot of heat between them for me. I don't know. It's just, whatever. But
they're both very attractive in their fields. So
yes, yeah, but
I guess it wasn't enough, right? You're like,
um. All the historical guys are fine, I guess. I don't know. I mean, like Sam Jackson is charming as always, you know. And Christoph Waltz, I think he's evil enough. Like him destroying that village is supposed to be the thing, like the inciting incident that you're supposed to be like, oh. But I see what you're saying, because after that he's just walking around being Christoph Waltz, and he's not being evil enough for you to really hate and like want Tarzan to destroy that, or want those crocodiles to maul him or whatever, right? Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really. I don't really like hate or love the characters here. Tarzan's okay. I think that Skarsgård does a good job of portraying the animal man in a society. That was pretty cool. I like his stance walking around like that. You know, my thing, I think he needs black hair. That's what Tarzan is.
Oh no!
supposed to have black hair, man, not blonde.
Nitpicker alert.
I know that's a thing that the public thinks Tarzan's blonde, but he's black haired, man.
But I need the loincloth. I have not said my loincloth thing. I'm still disappointed.
No, it's a dumb thing, but it's like, it's like Superman has trunks.
Right.
And Tarzan has black hair. It's like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't have any strong feelings either way, and so I was at a 1 with the characters.
Okay.
It's just that I did feel like the two main characters that everyone knows, Tarzan and Jane, didn't really have a lot of chemistry with each other, and are separated for a lot of it too, which is part of the issue as well. So yeah.
Okay, Scott, where are you at for characters?
I'd give it a 1.
Yep.
And as I said, some of Sean's earlier criticisms to me fell in this category, with the portraying historical characters. And there was a photo of Skarsgård carrying the book King Leopold's Ghost. I don't know if either of you have read it, but it was the book that was detailing the atrocities, the Congo atrocities, and so forth.
Yeah.
And so this was filmed in 2014 and released in 2016, 2 years in post-production, timing it for the marketplace. And so I read that book, and I think I came into it with sort of the baggage that they were going to be a little more closer to real life. And like you said, George Washington, whatever, is Samuel L. Jackson to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And that's, people love him as what he embodies in a movie, but he's still Samuel L. Jackson in period clothes.
Yeah.
I thought Margot Robbie's delivery was very contemporary. And she said that was a choice. She wanted young women to identify with her, her character. But to me, it was a little discordant with the other characters. I felt the other people, I could kind of see them being of that time period. Sam Jackson may be accepted. But, to me, her take was a little contemporary. Not as much chemistry between her and Skarsgård. There's a nice scene at the end. I got that he really wanted to rescue her, and I thought the final battle scene was well done. I'm talking about the destruction of the village, not necessarily the crocodiles.
Yeah.
Christoph Waltz, the villain, I felt like he was sort of a Bond villain light.
Yeah. Right.
Like a Bond villain, but they didn't commit fully. They didn't go all in on, like you said, the evil. There was a scene, and when in my younger years as another lifetime, I trained as an actor and did a lot of stage stuff. And they teach you always go for your first impulse. If you have this impulse, do it. It's always right. You're always, trust your instincts. And I mentioned there were some times in the movie where every time I saw it, and that was sort of the inner acting train come out, he should have done this. When Waltz had Tarzan, I thought he should have kissed him goodbye. And I didn't see anything romantic. Yeah. I didn't see anything sexual in that, just sort of a kiss goodbye, because he's that evil. He's that perverse.
Right.
And of course, then this got spun. They actually thought about that on set as the gay kiss that never happened. And there was some, frisson between Tarzan and Rom that did, and I didn't see it as, I just thought it was as part of his evil perversity. I'm going to kiss you goodbye because I've got you in my hands now and you're dead. And, I mentioned that the first 2 or 3 times I saw the movie, each time I expected that to happen. That's where it was leading. another one that I sort of, they led me down this path that it was when Mabanga and Tarzan battle it out, and he says, "You killed my son," and where was your honor? My line would have been, "I was an animal."
Yeah,
because Tarzan was an animal. He didn't play by human rules.
Yep.
And he says, "I had no honor." And to me, that was
right.
You just dishonored your hero. Tarzan always has honor.
Yeah.
And he wasn't dealing in those terms. He was an animal. You killed one of his tribe, you're gonna die. And he doesn't. I don't think that was something he had to apologize for.
Yeah, I agree with that. Actually, yeah, I like how you said that. Yep.
And there are 2 or 3 other moments like that where I just, they lead me down this path, and for the first few viewings, I'm like, this should happen. And it's a little shock. Wait, you have no honor? It was a little jarring to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, with character, and it's always a hard thing with the historical characters. I expected them to hew more closely to the real characters, and I was surprised that it was just sort of the trappings of the era and the setting, but they didn't really, they put the names of these, they put the name of Leon Rom on like a set of Bond villain light.
Right.
So, the characters, I just felt like that was an area that could have used a little more development, go a little deeper. I don't blame necessarily the actors. Maybe there was a time, maybe that they felt like they didn't want to alienate people with this quote unquote gayness. But, that's why I scored them a little lower on character.
Okay. All right. So we will get to enjoyment in just a second. Let's take a look at the poll. I posted a poll and it is at 100% yes. I just did it real simple. Do you like this movie or not? 100% yes. It's like Ricardo Montalban. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Is that Apes 4?
It's
Apes 4, I think. Yes.
Is it 4 or is it 3?
I think it's Apes 4 where he's got the baby, right? Oh no, it's 3 at the end.
Because he takes the baby and he's like, "You want me to help a bunch of apes?" And he's like, "Yes, 1,000 times yes."
I gotta clip that for my stream.
Yeah, make a GIF.
Yeah, I've got a few here, but I don't know what it's like. I've got a bunch here, but I didn't play them because I got so into talking that I didn't even think to play any of these, but. Yeah. So, okay. So yeah, 100% people do like this movie. So for enjoyment, you can just give it whatever you want. Like you could just be 2 out of 2 because I just love the movie. I don't care. You don't have to, I'm going to explain myself, but you don't have to explain yourself. But obviously we'll talk about it. Is there anything else we want to say about characters before we move on? Anything that we missed? I'm trying to look at my notes here. Yeah, I think I'm good.
I think for art, the funny thing to me was when they did the Tarzan yell. Everyone knows,
they did do
right?
it, yeah.
And it's a little different. And Christoph Waltz, he's like, it's a little different than what I thought. And he's like, yeah, it's a little different than what I thought too. But that's cool. Yeah.
Well, you could throw that into the enjoyment. I'm going to give the enjoyment factor for me a 1.5. The reason is there's no loincloth. The yell is not exact. I just felt that it, as you said, it's too much ensemble. I want to see Tarzan. Like, I want it to be like, I want to walk out of that movie and be like, Tarzan, right? Versus I walked out, I was like, that was pretty good. That was a pretty good movie. I like that movie. Because when it comes to the end of the day, I'm a character person. Like, I love Superman 3 and 4. I don't care if the storylines aren't that good or there's some silly stuff. Christopher Reeve is the best. End of the day, I go with the character. Christopher Reeve is the best. He's Superman to me. As long as he's doing cool stuff, I'm going to like this movie. And that's what the enjoyment factor is. Yes, I can say that Superman 4, the effects weren't as good as Superman 3 even, but they weren't as good. Budget, whatever. Story wasn't that. It doesn't matter. And for enjoyment, I still love the Christopher Reeve movies. For Tarzan, I'm giving it 1.5 because I still liked Tarzan. He was cool. He did swing around a little bit. I wanted to see more fighting with him. Just more fighting. The loincloth, whether it's leopard skin or normal, just like leather or whatever. Maybe him, I would have liked to have seen him use like more weapons to I don't know. I just want to see more Tarzan-y things going on where kids come out like when kids come out of Batman, they're like, I want to be Batman, right? It's like, I want to see kids want to be Tarzan, and they're like, oh, buy the Tarzan pack at Toys R Us where there's like a bow and arrow and a knife or something. I don't
Cool
know.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, look, I want to buy stuff for my. I walked out of the movie. I'm like, there's nothing to buy. Like, I gotta get a Tarzan. I got my Tarzan shelf right there. So it's like I don't have. I need to have more toys. Like
By
the
that
Disney
CGI
Tarzan.
hand when he puts his hand on the thing, and
That was cool though.
that was kind of neat. Yeah,
that was neat.
There's a cool explanation of the whole thing.
Yeah, that was. See, now that was okay, but that makes Tarzan look cool. I want things to happen in the movie that make Tarzan look cool because I want other people to say, yeah, Tarzan's awesome. I'm like, that's right, he's awesome. Have you seen friggin' Legend of Tarzan? He kicks the shit out of everybody in that movie. And it's like, and that's why I'm not at a 2. Going by my normal standards, I would be at a 2 because I did like it. I did buy it, of course. I would recommend somebody to watch it, and I would watch it again because I have watched it a few times. So, but it's just that for ranking purposes, I'm going to stick to 1.5 just because, I don't know. Just a few more Tarzan-y things. It's just like James Bond. Everyone likes that Daniel Craig movie, but there's not enough Bond things in it for me to really go full on that either. So, Sean, you can go ahead and Scott will have the last word on the enjoyment. So, Sean, what do you think?
I'll give it a 1.5. I think it's cool that they made this. It's pretty awesome, and I like the direction insofar as they didn't. They tried to attack it from a different angle. They sensed fatigue in the whole origin things. Are like, you know what, this is a bit later. Like he's fully like in society, and he has to go back to being Tarzan. That's a neat angle, I think, to take. And I do like some of the action with him swimming around and stuff like that. That's what you want to see in a modern, like how they're going to do this, right? It's going to be awesome. So that kind of stuff is great. I just think that I think it just gets held back from the action and imagination that I wanted out of a Tarzan movie. And it's a shame they didn't make a sequel after this. So
yes,
yeah.
I always want a sequel. I never want them to just be done and start over again. I'm like, give the guys a chance, especially if we like the main actor.
Yeah.
All right, Scott, enjoyment factor. What do you want to give it?
I give it a 1.5, and overall I liked it. Overall, I thought it was good. And I gauge it by other people's response. My niece and nephew liked it. I think they watched it and turned around and watched it immediately again.
Nice.
That's always a good sign when a young teen or somebody likes a movie that they want to go back. It's like when I would read a Tarzan book, I'd go back and start at the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
To pick up the things that I didn't know about, the things that were foreshadowed. Now you kind of go, oh, okay, this is what's going to happen. So a lot of the people who didn't know Tarzan, it had a very positive effect on them. I thought Skarsgård was good. He was really committed to the role. One thing that we haven't commented on is, a lot of times, in the past, Tarzan was an athlete. They got an Olympic caliber athlete or a professional athlete. Skarsgård is a rare few, and this is the trend with Casper Van Dien and with Christopher Lambert, that he is an actor first and foremost. You took an actor and you trained him into an athlete. You sculpted an athlete. That's easier to do than make an athlete into an actor, because it takes years of training to become an actor. Today, with diet and nutrition and training, you can sculpt a body in 6 months, or less. So one thing that wasn't mentioned about Skarsgård was his inner life. I liked in the beginning, he's brooding. You can see in his eyes, that close up on his eyes, that stuff's going on in his head and he's thinking. And I was like, yeah, that's who Tarzan is. There was this primal ferocity that was beneath the surface, I felt, when he's in the all duded up in London. And, he's suppressing that. And I felt Skarsgård did a good job of showing that. I felt Yates did a good job of photographing and capturing that. It was just a moment like you don't often see in the Tarzan movies. Tarzan's run around with a bow and arrow shooting guys and so forth. So to see sort of the inner life and the savagery, really liked that moment, is a moment we haven't commented on. So yeah, this is something I would recommend to people who don't know the character, don't come to it knowing the books. If it's someone who has read the books and asked me, I say, well, it's good, but
Right,
you
but
qualified, temper your expectations like any movie. I think, like you said earlier, I thought Tarzan got beaten up too easily.
Yeah.
That was my quibble when I saw this. I was like, man, I walked out of that, man, Tarzan sure got beaten up a lot. But I know what they were doing. He's in civilization, and he's toned all that down, and they're showing a character arc. By the end, he's the savage Tarzan again. So, but I would have liked to seen him be a little more of a violent force of nature earlier on. But yeah, overall, I liked it. I would recommend it more strongly, like I said, to people who don't know the books. If this is the only Tarzan you're going to get, I would recommend this over, most of the previous film Tarzans.
Right. I do like the idea that if someone's going to watch the movie, then they go back and read, because I've come across a lot of people who this is mostly now because the big things are obviously the Marvel and DC movies, where they love the movies and then they don't go back. I've had a few people that have gone back and read the comics, and then they've 180'd on some of the movies. Like, they love the movie, then they went back and read, like, oh, this movie is not that good, is it? I'm like, no, it's not.
No.
And I didn't want to discourage you, like, because they're like, I love this movie, Jay, man, it's the best. I'm like, well, okay. And then they're like, oh, I read the comic, and this isn't really that good. I'm like, right, it actually sucks. But I didn't want to tell you that it sucked, because I didn't want to turn you off. So if Tarzan, like, this movie is a good movie, it's not an embarrassment like the Transformers movies. People can go and read Tarzan comics or whatever. Tarzan just relaunched another comic. I think issue 2 might not have come out yet.
Is
Lord
that
of the
Dynamite,
Jungle.
or is it?
Yeah, you got Lord of the Jungle #1, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's brand new. That's brand new. That's
yeah.
right.
I haven't gotten those yet, so I'm looking forward to. I just got back into town in Los Angeles, so I got to go pick those up. But yeah, I love Benito Galigo's art. Just amazing art.
Yeah, and issue 1 is just out now, so issue 2 should be coming pretty. And they've got Sheena out. Sheena's on issue 6 or 7, which actually I like the Sheena comic too. To tell you, it's like it's cool to have them like going back. It'd be cool to have a Sheena Tarzan team. No, but so let's see where we're all. So where we're all at is Sean was at a 6 out of 10. So that's above average. An average movie is a 5 out of 10, means it was okay. You're saying it's better than okay. It's good. Scott, you're at a 7 and I'm at a 6.5. So it's so funny how we're so close. Now, if someone would have asked me, what do you rate this movie without me thinking about it, I probably would have said maybe a 7.5, maybe even an 8. So on scrutiny, this does happen for me all the time. When I scrutinize it and really break it down, I'm always lower than what I would have thought initially. But ultimately, I always, if you're talking to me, I would have said, oh yeah, you should watch this movie for sure, because I just go with my enjoyment of it, and of like, yeah, it was awesome, you should watch it, and then we can nitpick it later. And that's why we do streams, so we can nitpick these things and say, I don't like there's no loincloth, though I think he had the loincloth at the very, very end when he was swinging at the end, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, well, it was kind of a kilt.
It was kind of a kilt. Yeah. Oh, it was a kilt. That's right. I didn't like that either. That's right. You reminded me.
Kilt. I was thinking, how's he moving in that? He just kind of swung across the screen, and so I wanted because I mentioned there are iconic things. I think you have to hit with Tarzan, with the the big knife, the big sharp knife, and I think the loincloth is one of them. That's, like you said, that's his Superman S. That's his Batman cowl. It's the loincloth. That's in essence what makes him Tarzan upon sight. When you lay your eyes on him, that's Tarzan.
Yeah.
And yes, in the books, Tarzan was dressed up in Victorian England or whatever, Edwardian England, but you're not going to know looking at this guy he's Tarzan. When he's in the loincloth, that's Tarzan.
Yeah. That's my, and I'm a stickler for that kind of thing, because it's like, it's become what the character is. If Superman doesn't have a red cape, like if you say, well, this Superman movie is perfect, but he's got a green cape, you're like, well, that's weird, right? It's just like, it matters. Like, it's like, well, it's just a cape, right? But it matters if you're a fan of Superman. It's instantaneously recognizable. You got the S, you got the cape. If Batman doesn't have the cowl, then it's just a mask. Like, it's like the Flash. Like if it was a black and white picture, the Flash and Batman would look the same without the horns, right? Like, I guess Flash has a little bit of a more angular thing if you want to be a nerd about it, but Batman, the image is important.
Yeah, and I think that's why the Travis Fimmel series failed. They stripped away every iconic thing. There was no knife, there was no jungle, there was no apes, there's no loincloth. And I get you want him to be fish out of water, but he was just like a dirty homeless guy.
Right.
Wandering around New York City barefoot in clothes I think he scavenged out of the garbage, and he just did not have that. You want your hero to be larger than life. And I'm like, this guy, and I think he broke into a butcher place and he's eating the raw meat, and they're trying to show savagery, but
right.
Like, yeah, this guy he just looked like a homeless guy.
Yeah,
they did the same thing with Flash Gordon. Remember that sci-fi? Was it sci-fi?
Oh, where he's just in a park somewhere. He always
it's a guy in like a leather jacket. I'm like, that is not Flash Gordon. It's like I've seen all the Flash Gordon things. I have all the Alex Raymond strips like collected in those hardcover bound editions. It's like, this is not any of these. Like, you don't have to pick the exact costume I want. Like, there's lots of different versions of that. He has different outfits. But yeah, it's like, it's the ship of Theseus, right? At some point, you've removed so much that this is no longer Tarzan. It's like, let's remove this. This is James Bond. And that was my initial thing with this Tarzan movie. I thought this is going to be the non-Tarzan Tarzan. So I was super surprised when Steve came back. He's like, you know what, guys? This was awesome. I was like, oh, okay. So I bought it. I would have bought it anyway. So Scott, you don't know this. If it's something like Tarzan or Superman or Batman, I will buy it on Blu-ray or 4K regardless. Even if I thought it was utter trash, I'm like, I have to buy it because I need it in my collection. I can't. So I was going to buy that Tarzan movie no matter what, but that's why I was super surprised. Like when I first saw it, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like he's pretty close to Tarzan. Like, it's not exact, but what do you guys think is the best live action Tarzan? Like, do you have one? Like, I think still for me, Greystoke, but I have to rewatch. There's not that many to choose from. And if you're going back to, like, I don't know. I don't think anyone's going to say any of the Johnny movies, right? But I don't know. What do you guys, Scott, what do you think? What do you think is the best? Or how about this? What do you think is the best representation of Tarzan in live action? And if it's different, what do you think is your favorite? Because that might not necessarily be the same, the same movie.
Well, none of them are the Tarzan of the books, so they all fall a little short for me. I would usually approach this by saying, if people say there's 5, if you break it down to about 5 movies, and this goes back some years, I would recommend Tarzan the Ape Man, the first Weissmuller.
Yep.
Tarzan and his mate.
Yep, that was good too.
Just that scene with the lions and that
was awesome.
battle royale. They were throwing everything they had into the character for those 2 movies.
Yeah.
Then Gordon Scott, Tarzan's Greatest Adventure with Angie the Bush Pilot. He's that's a Western. He's hunting down the guys in the jungle, this gang of 4 jewel thieves or whatever, and he's got past beef with them, and they hurt him, they injure him, they throw a bomb at him or something. He's injured, and they compromise Tarzan so that they reduce his superpowers. Right. So the Gordon Scott, I love the jungle sequence of Greystoke.
Right.
Like
yes.
Town tracked the book, and for me it kind of went astray when they went to England, and I would have liked the Jane story to play out differently. Jane's never in the jungle. Tarzan is this kind of quirky, weird guy she meets at a dinner party, basically. Yeah. Right. It's not like he saves her from some overwhelming danger in his environment in the jungle. That's where she falls in love. She's like, this guy's the ultimate protector. He can protect me in this most hostile of environments. Right. I think that was a big part of the story. And so, meeting him at a dinner party or whatever, it just doesn't have that same thing. And I like the Disney movie. I think it's good. And I would place this movie, along in that pantheon of the must watches, I would say.
Right.
With Casper's movie and a few of the others, if you're going to dig a little deeper.
That's all we need, buddy. I'm in. Sign me up. It's like
I think they did that, but that movie got banned. The Burroughs people came after him.
Yeah, nudity can get anything. It's like, yeah, okay, 10 out of 10. Forget the space rating system. It's
right.
So those are your.
So, yeah, it's hard for me to choose a single one. but they're depending on what you want. Like I said, the first two Weissmullers, the Gordon Scott, and the second not the second, actually, it's the fifth Gordon Scott, but it was kind of a retread of the first one. I liked the first one. They did the same formula, and what it's got going for it is Jock Mahoney is one of the baddies, and you got Gordon battling Jock, but it's kind of pretty much the same movie as the first one. They just retreaded did a retread of the successful formula. So that's my core pack to watch. And like I said, if you want to branch out a little bit, Casper movie, Ron Ely's series, I have huge respect for what he did as an actor, wrestling all these animals, and that's never going to happen again. Where you got this big guy who's willing to wrestle a lion, a tiger, a leopard, and some of these were carnival animals that they just brought in. He was talking about the tiger. There just happened to be a carnival that had a young tiger, and they were like, "See that tiger? You're going to wrestle him next week. Get to be friends with the tiger." I have tremendous respect for him for stepping in and doing that, and size wise. So I mean, I have sort of my core packet of required viewing, and then if you want to branch out,
right? Yeah, I think as a kid I liked Greystoke just because I thought it was cool. I did watch I watched a lot of the Johnny movies, the black and white ones. I don't remember I don't think I've seen every single movie. I own whatever you got in those Warner Brother packs. I don't think they ever did they ever do like a proper set?
Years ago, they did the first,
no, look.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, they did the 6 MGMs, and then they did the 6 RKOs. So I have those, but they're expensive on Amazon now.
Yeah, I don't think. Do you have any of those, Sean?
What's that?
I don't know. No.
Yeah,
they did a documentary when they released the first batch, and I'm in the documentary, and they sent me a sealed shrink wrap, and I never broke it open because I have all the movies on VHS. So I've got the first one, and then the second batch of DVDs I bought, and I watched them. I have an affection for the later Weissmullers, the RKO, Tarzan and the Amazons, Tarzan and the Leopard Woman, Tarzan Tramps, because they have the Lost Worlds. And I love Lost World, novels from the early pulp era when the world was still unknown, and people go in and they find this lost society, and usually there's parallels. There's either sort of subtle political commentary, whatever, with the way this lost society. And Burns did a lot of that world building in the Tarzan series, but and Burns was advising Saul Lesser, so he was giving him plot lines and stuff. So I think his DNA is in those later Weissmuller movies. They have a certain silliness about elements of them, but there's just a romance and allure to the Lost Race RKO tales for me.
What do you think of the 90s TV series that delved into that kind of thing more?
Epic Adventures?
Yeah, Epic Adventures, yeah.
I thought it had a lot of potential, but I was really disappointed that it didn't meet the potential.
Yeah.
And it was primarily the budgetary. They did not have the budget to do it right.
Right, yeah.
They started out with good intentions. As the series went on, they incorporated more of the magic and the mysticism, and Tarzan needed a sensei Dope Man to guide him, and it really veered away from Burroughs. The early ones, I think that they wanted to do it right, and certainly different elements. Some of the actors were into it, some of the producers were into it. Others of them wanted to go in a different direction away from Burroughs, and so I just thought it was a missed opportunity. I still watch them, and it's kind of like the things I see with the scenes I thought should have happened in Legend of Tarzan. I see scenes and I think, oh, this needs to happen, and it doesn't happen. I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
They shot the action sequences in broad daylight.
Yeah.
Got to do a lot of cheats with Tarzan. I think that's one thing the Legend did is darkness, rain, fog. You can cheat a lot in battle scenes and stuff with that, and it adds mystique and allure, but it also it helps you to hide sort of deficiencies. As Disney learned with 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, with the squid battle, you guys may have heard, they filmed that in broad daylight, and it just wasn't working. It was just a rubber squid. And then they did the storm and the lightning flashes and the rain, and it worked. So I felt like they needed that with Epic Adventures. They needed to film at night. They needed some fog machines. They needed to really make it a little more moody and atmospheric, and and some of the line readings were just clunky.
I'm looking at it. It looks pretty neat just from still pictures.
Yeah, some of the actors needed a little more time in class, but
and strangely, the toy line for that is actually pretty cool because there's a whole bunch of Burroughs characters that were never really produced in that sort of format again.
That's the toys I had.
Yeah,
those are the toys that
they did a lot of
toy
John
line
Carter characters too. It's like, sure, guys, keep them coming.
Well, you want to know what's interesting is the toy line preceded the show. The show was called Tarzan: The Fantastic Adventures. And the toy line came out, and they decided, okay, we're going to explore Burroughs' worlds. So they rejiggered. Actually, this is a rare case of the show was rejiggered, or maybe not so rare with Saturday morning television. The show was sort of rejiggered to match the toys.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because those are the toys. That's the Tarzan I know, right? From those toys.
I was wondering why there are so many series for that toy line when the show didn't last that long, and that's probably why, because it was before it, and
Yeah, and I think some of it, with the John Carter stuff, people still want to see Tarzan go to Mars, Tarzan go to John Carter. You got to remember these are two franchises, and you got to pay 2 franchise fees for that.
Right. Yeah.
So it's the same thing. I think the Burroughs Corporation is a little more amenable to crossovers now, but back in the day, that's what kept Tarzan from going to Pellucidar. Even in the comic books, I remember, when Marvel did the Tarzan Goes to Pellucidar, they couldn't use any of the characters or continuity. Yeah, that was because Burroughs Inc. said, no, you got to pay a separate licensing fee for Pellucidar. So you can take Tarzan there, but he does his own thing.
Yeah.
So it's a little disappointing that they can't haven't in the past been able to draw in more of the Burroughs mythos.
Right.
Yeah, I think as a kid, like I don't know any of this stuff as a kid, so I'm just thinking, oh man, I want to see Superman and Spider-Man team up. It's like, yeah, that's like not happening. It's like, because but I do remember these toys, and I was thinking, holy shit, is this happening? Like, because I'm a toy guy in the sense like where it's like if I'm collecting He-Man or Transformers, to me, if that's a toy line, that's what's happening. Like I remember like that right there is Defenders of the Earth. So that's all of them in the packaging. These are the new toys and the old toys. I don't have Lothar or Mandrake in the packaging, but I have the other characters in the packaging from that toy line. So to me, I'm like, holy crap, it's all these cool heroes together. I'm not thinking, wait a minute, is this the same creator? Like,
I didn't know they were King Features characters.
Right, I didn't know that.
Like, oh, that's why they all go. Gosh.
Right, because I know, Lee Falk. Okay, he's got Phantom and Mandrake and Lothar, but we've got Alex Raymond is Flash Gordon. But you don't know this as a kid. You're just like, oh shit, these guys are all together.
They're all King.
They're King Features, and that actually is how these newer toys came out as well. But so it's crazy. But when he said the toy line but that's what I'm saying. So when I saw Tarzan toy line, I was like, what, Tarkus? I'm like, is this happening?
Yeah,
what?
That was cool. Yeah,
right. No, because there's a toy of them, and he's in the same packaging as Tarzan. So as a kid, you're like, yeah, well, I got He-Man and Skeletor. Well, obviously they're in the same show, and you knew that the Transformers weren't going to team up with He-Man, but this was all the same packaging. There's all these weird characters that I've never knew. I'm like, I didn't know who John Carter was. Like that toy line is my introduction to what John Carter is. I didn't know what that was.
Right.
I know Tarzan. So it's like, holy shit, does Tarzan fight these guys? Like, what's going on with this guy? Who's this character? I'm like, is Tarzan going to fight this thing? And it's like, yeah, that's like not happening. It's like, oh, okay. So, all right, guys. Well, we're at just past 9. So anything else to talk about? Because I know if we start, like, we can go way off and it's like, anything else to say about the Legend of Tarzan specifically that we haven't talked about? Anything you want to mention? Let me look at my notes too.
Well, I mean, 14 years from that movie is, what is it, 2030? So
that's the next Tarzan movie?
It's not really the next Tarzan movie. At the rate you said they're going.
Yeah. Well, Sony has the option on Tarzan.
Okay. Yeah.
But I don't think, last I've heard, they don't have a creative team. They don't have a creative approach. They've got rights to the trademark.
They have the rights to a live action Tarzan, or
live action, correct?
Yeah, because there's that weird CGI thing that came out, and it looks bad to me. I saw bits of it. I don't know if that's unlicensed or what that is.
You know about the Andy Briggs that was just released, the English footage? You're not talking. There was a 2013 CGI animated film. You're not
Okay.
I remember that one, but no, there's one I just recently saw something. I thought it was, I don't know if it's a foreign language or something, but
That's test footage. It's British. Andy Briggs wrote 3 young adult Tarzan novels that came out. It's probably been 10 years.
Yeah.
He currently has the animation license, and I think I want to say Frame Store is the digital effects house. Yeah, they released some test footage, and I guess they're trying to find a distributor, but haven't heard anything else. I'll have to.
So how long did Disney hold it? Because it's funny. I feel like they just exploded a whole bunch of Tarzan stuff. Like, it was the movie.
There's part 2,
Tarzan 2, Tarzan and Jane, which was 3 of the unaired episodes of the show. The show was like 39 episodes, is 2 seasons, and then nothing. And it's like, whoa, you got it right out of your system. Like, what just happened here?
Thanks for joining the stream.
And that show had like Queen Law, and it had like Rockoff.
Yeah, they went back to the novels. I really enjoyed that show. I watched it, I think on YouTube or somewhere when I was writing my book.
Yeah.
And I think Disney's license was 10 years. Merchandise.
Okay.
There's different licenses. There's the license to, there's the film or TV license. There's animated. There's film license and TV, and there's live action and animated in both of those. Yeah. But the merchandising license is separate, and literary might even be separate. Yeah. So neither John Carter nor The Legend of Tarzan pulled a merchandising license. There was never going to be merchandise, which kind of makes you ask, what was the studio's commitment to this movie? They're dumping this movie on the marketplace, but Lone Ranger got toys, Prince of Persia got a Lego set.
Yeah.
Where's John Carter? You would think John Carter and Tarzan, have a bigger following, for a Lego set or something than some of these other characters. But the studios never did a merchandising.
Yeah, you're telling me Disney can't shell out a bit?
Well, they're losing money like crazy now on these not so great Marvel.
Well, they'll bounce back, man.
They'll bounce back. Yeah, it's nothing to them. But that's why, well, John Carter too, because when John Carter came out, that was the first of the, are they really going there now? Like, holy crap. Because you look, I like Casper Van Dien, all those other ones, but like now you're talking today's technology. So you thought, holy crap, like this John Carter movie. And I think they marketed it poorly, but we thought that this is going to blow our socks off. Like, wow, this is going to be Star Wars, man. This is it. Like now we're going somewhere. And you're like, yeah, no one cares. It's like, it's like, well, I like John Carter. It's like,
yeah, where are the toys? What happened here?
What happened? Yeah.
Where's the Lego partnership? What's going on? Yeah.
There was never a commitment from the studio to do that.
Yeah.
Because that license is signed, minimum a year before, preferably 2 years before, because you've got to get the prototypes. You've got to set the factory up to make the toys. You got to get the prototypes into Toy Fair in January, or maybe even the January the year before. So the retailers can order them and get them on shelves. So, and there's a great book about John Carter and the Gods of Hollywood by Michael Sellers.
Right. Yeah.
And he's a small independent filmmaker, and he was tracking this, and he was like, folks, we got a problem. There's not going to be any toys.
Yeah.
He could see early on that Disney wasn't hitting the metrics they needed for full support. And he was sort of sounding the alarm, and sure enough, he was right. And, he put his blog posts into a book and kind of polished them up and, add a little afterthought or hindsight. But it's a really good book. And I just want to say hi to Demos. I saw him pop up there, a buddy of mine up in your area, up in Canada.
Oh, nice. Oh, thank you for dropping by, eh?
I just want to say one thing about that Filmation show. It's awesome. I mean, we all watched it, but the DVD for it, I don't know if you could shed light on this, is like the official DVD. It's only 1 season, and it's the scratchiest transfer I've ever seen on an official DVD. I don't know what happened.
What's going on with that? I confess, I bought a bootleg at a Comic-Con years ago, and these things are taken from the masters. Right. No commercials, and they're beautiful.
Yeah.
And I don't have the commercial DVD because I got the masters, and then I've seen them over the years on, they pop up on YouTube, and I think they get pulled.
Right.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen the new one. But I've heard that complaint that why the heck didn't they?
Yeah.
Use clean masters. Maybe they didn't have access to it, or second of all, clean them up. Maybe they felt like there wasn't enough, interest or the audience, the potential audience didn't merit that kind of expenditure.
Right.
But yeah, I've heard a lot of people were disappointed because I grew up on that. I was reading the novels and watching that on Saturday mornings, and
Mm-hmm.
I watched those over and over. What's funny is there were actually 4 years. I watched it, for the first 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And I just thought they were recycling episodes, so I kind of stopped watching it. I guess I got involved in sports and stuff and stopped watching Saturday morning TV. But they had some episodes on the DVD I got that I'd never seen before.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that was kind of cool. I didn't know it went that extra year, and it was only like 6 episodes. But that was fun. And I never even heard of the episode where Jane comes to the jungle.
Right. Yes.
And it was interesting that I found that out too, I believe through Danton, was that they were afraid they were going to lose the trademark or copyright or whatever on Jane because she hadn't been in a movie in so long. She was not in the Cy Weintraub movies from the late 50s. So they wanted to sort of bring Jane back into the series and sort of reclaim their ownership over that character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they have 5. Is it 5 years or what is it that they have before they?
I think back then it was either 14 or 28.
Oh, okay.
Well, for copyright, you had to renew copyrights, and of course now it's for Burroughs, it's 95 years after the publication date. So his stuff from roughly 1927 back is public domain now.
So no, but when you option the rights, you have to use the character within 5 years or something, don't you? Is that
just depends on the terms of your option? There's also trademark. For a trademark to be established, you have to show usage.
Right. Okay.
In other words, if you're not putting product out there with the Tarzan brand name on it, you lose that. And
yeah, that's how we got a lot of the bad, like the Fantastic Four, two Fantastic Four movies that were bad. But same kind of thing. It's like they have to keep bringing stuff out because it's like you're not using it. It goes back. Even for our own show, Sean and I had a show potentially. It has nothing to do with anything we do here. It's something else. And I remember, Sean, we were going through all that, and then it just ran out. And it's like the guy didn't do anything with it, and then now it went back to us, and the guy who was in charge of it, he's got the rights back now. But it's not going anywhere. So we're not going to be on TV, guys. I know everyone's upset.
We're on something better than TV.
Well, and I heard that about the She-Hulk. That was why She-Hulk was created. A competitor was going to do a Hulk, and they needed to come out with the comic books.
Right.
And I collected those comic books when I was a kid, and then when the danger was passed to the copyright or trademark, or whatever, they just stopped it. So and maybe that's why you see a series like Devil Dinosaur. I don't know if that's the case with them, but they bring Devil Dinosaur back after 20-something years.
They just brought it. They did bring Devil Dinosaur back. Yes, they just did.
Well, it's like Shazam and stuff. They just bring it back to renew the copyright.
Right.
With a new take, and
Yeah. All right. Give me back. Hey, Charlie. Thanks for
Charlie.
For stopping. Charlie's links are in the description of this video. It's Giving Back My Action /horror movies. They did a great stream talking about VHS covers. They didn't show any of the VHS covers that I picked were the best, so that's upsetting. But the ones that they picked were very good. But okay, I think we're gonna end it off there, guys, because we're already 1:42. I don't want people to be turned off by like a 3-hour stream. I want people to come back and watch. Not like the last Saturday one.
Another day.
But Scott, man, this was awesome having you on here. We definitely 100% have to do another Tarzan thing down the line. So let me make sure. Oh, let me check the poll once. We're at 83%. There's a fly in the ointment. Somebody said no. Someone said no.
Just click that no.
Okay, I'm gonna end the poll right now so that we can't get any more. So we can't get any more.
Before it gets out of hand, yeah.
It's okay, guys. You can not like stuff. It's fine. It's like there's lots of stuff that people like that I don't like. So got everybody. So Scott's Amazon page link is in the description of this video, yes, but also in the chat, and it will remain there. So if anyone's watching this on like a replay or like download or whatever, they're watching it another time, that will still be there, so they can go to your Amazon page, and your I think your books are still available, right?
Tarzan the Centennial Celebration is out of print.
Is out of print. Oh, okay.
Second market sellers, and the price is going up.
And they do have that listed on Amazon, so you can go to the marketplace and
yeah. So maybe hopefully a revised edition in the future.
That'd be awesome. But Okay.
Demos asked if
oh.
we've done John Carter, and we have. Yes,
We did do John Carter. Thanks so
couple
much for
episodes back,
asking.
yeah.
Yes, we haven't done too many of these. We did John Carter.
This is the fourth one.
This is the fourth. Yes, we did.
Thongor was the first one.
Yeah, we did
And then John
Thongor
Carter. And then
Conan. But the 2011 Conan, the unpopular, Conan, which is, again, it's a kind of a neat movie. Is it Robert E. Howard? Not really. It's kind of not really hit. Again, I don't know. It's that's the thing with these with these movies. But okay. Thanks again to Scott for coming on. Sean, we're good. We will be back on Tuesday for Weekly Women of World Wrestling with Steve and I, and then a week from today, Sean and I will be doing some movie, maybe Fire and Ice. We'll see how it goes. But that is it. Thank you to everyone in the chat, to everyone who voted. If you enjoy this kind of thing, like, subscribe, all that stuff that everyone says in every video that I hardly ever say, that I always forget to say. But thank you to everybody. That's it. Until next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey, friends, you've just been listening to J-Man, and he is the smartest person who ever lived. So make sure you like and subscribe.